Right, we've not got any participants yet.
No. Have to wait a bit.
Oh, hello, we've got a first customer. A second. Hello everybody, we're just waiting for a couple of minutes to allow people time to join us with our webinar.
Yeah.
I confess, I've never actually used this platform before, so it's quite fascinating watching the participant number change and wondering when's a good time to actually start the talk. But perhaps as an opening gambit, as it were, 1:15 on a Sunday, my word, I've never been asked to present something instead of Sunday lunch before. So if you're already joining us, perhaps you'd like to put in the chat what you're going to have for your Sunday lunch if you're not already eating it whilst watching this. Because of course you can do that now, a great bit of concurrent activity. So I can tell you, I'll tell you at the end of the session what I'm going to have for my Sunday lunch. But perhaps you'd like to just say hello and in the chat, just tell us what you're going to be eating. I'm waiting for the first person. Oh, yeah. Lunch already from Italy. Hello, Luna. Pasta. Aha. Good to know. Now we need another one. Because of course, Sunday lunch, a real tradition in the UK. I cooked Sunday lunch for my family for years and years and all our relatives. So I'm very interested to see what other people are having for their Sunday lunch today, or have had, or are going to have. Roast chicken. Oh, lovely, Kirsten. One of my favorites, roast chicken. Oh, eaten ravioli and tomato sauce from Denmark. Hi, Heidi. Now, so we've got 2 pasta-based dishes. Anything else interesting? Another roast somewhere? I can tell you I'm having roast lamb and apple crumble later on. Vegetable, how to pronounce that? Is that gyoza? That sounds delicious. Hi, Dimitri. And who else have we got that's going to be joining us? Skip lunch, had a big breakfast. Carlos, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, nothing like having brunch on a Sunday, then you don't have to do anything till later in the evening. That's always a good one. Saves on the washing up. You see, I'm aiming for a proper lunch, and then it will just be a snack before I go to bed. So I'm doing it that way today. Anybody else? Right, we're on 21. So Heine, should we go for it?
Maybe we can have a slow start now, Kate.
Slow start? And we can certainly introduce ourselves. So hello and welcome to our presentation on the Language Conversation app. And to start with, some very quick introductions, and I'd like to hand over to my colleague Heine to start with.
Yes, so hello from London, sunny day in London here, for November day, and my name is Heine Schenke, and I'm a principal lecturer in German at the University of Westminster, and I'm also an author, and I've written a number of German course books, grammar books, and some teacher self books as well. And 2 years ago, I presented a session on textbook writing at the Language Show. And last year, I talked about the advantages and disadvantages of self-publishing versus publishing with a publisher. And this year, I'm very happy with my colleague Kate. We've been developing a language conversation app. Happy to present it today, where we are now, the stages where we are now. And we hope it's going to be a useful tool you could, as a teacher, you can use, and also for learners to improve their language skills. Kate, and
hello, my name is Kate Weir. I'm also a principal lecturer at the University of Westminster. I look after Polylang, which is our pan-university language course. And Heiner and I have been working on this language conversation app now for oh gosh, just under 2 years. And what's going to happen today is I'm going to present. Heiner's going to keep an eye on the chat, but please, can you put your questions in the Q&A at the bottom, because it's really tricky seeing the chat. I certainly can't see it. So questions in the Q&A, and we'll look at them at the end. All right. So I'm now just about to share my screen.
I think I can try answer the questions when we go along.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't do multitasking.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing I'd like to say is, why did Heiner and I decide that we needed to look to design a language conversation app? That's the main question. And like many things, it started with COVID. And in March 2020, when we put Polylang online, Heiner and I asked ourselves, how do we give our online learners additional conversation practice? And what we decided to do was to set up a scheme that we called the Language Volunteer Scheme. And our aim was to match our volunteer students who'd got native or high-level language skills with language learners for weekly conversation sessions. And I have to say here, the University of Westminster is an incredibly international university. So it's quite straightforward for us to find people with a huge range of languages. So at the beginning of the LVS scheme, the Language Volunteer Scheme, we provided training for our students, for our learners, and for our volunteers. And part of the training involved discussing the sorts of stimuli that could be used for the conversations that they were going to have with one another. And of course, for higher level language learners, it's very easy to identify something, you know, a text, a piece of music, a news item. Any of those things can be used as stimulus for a conversation. But for low level language learners, it's much trickier. Because you want to provide something as for a basis for a concrete conversation. And really, you need a number of prompts for that. So we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could design an app that would generate the 2 sets of prompts for a language conversation? And here is our initial aim. We wanted to create an app to support language conversation practice. Each person would only see their part of the conversation. The prompts would be in English with support in the target language if required. And I should say we wanted it to be, the app, of course, to be on a mobile phone. So you could have 2 learners. At the time it would be online, but of course it'd be online on site with their mobile phones, accessing 2 halves of a conversation. In early 2021, having got the Language Volunteer Scheme off the ground, we asked the School of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Westminster if they would be interested in working on a joint project. And then we were very fortunate because in September 2021, we employed 2 of our current students who were studying creative writing and linguistics and were doing a humanities work placement module in their final year. And we employed them to do some creative writing for us. So our 2 work placement students called Orshi and Tamara started working for us in September 21, and they produced 84 role plays. And this is a picture of one of the role plays that they produced for us. Each week, Heine and I met with them to enact the role plays. And we would look at the content, we would change things if necessary, and we would agree a CEFR level for that particular role play. So you can see here, we stored them all in Excel based on feedback from computer science. We had a context, ordering food and drink, a subcontext, the two people, and here we had our conversation, and the words in red were words that we considered to be more complex, and we've asked colleagues across Polylang to give us the target language for those. This was quite an interesting thing, managing the writing team, because we presumed that the students understood how role plays are used in the classroom, and we were completely wrong. They were imagining the role plays being changed into the target language. The whole concept of the prompt we had failed to explain very clearly. Other issues, the writer's use of English differed from ours, and so we had to use some tact and diplomacy. And also, certainly from my perspective with my middle-aged English, I had to recognise that English from younger people is different, and accept that. A couple of contexts were inappropriate, but very few. And I have to say, the team produced some fabulous, innovative 21st century role plays based on their own life experiences, working in retail, working in restaurants, dealing with Deliveroo and parcel deliveries and Amazon. You know, they produced role plays that I would never have thought about. So here, the next thing we had to do, a second, it's tricky because part of my screen I can't see. One of the first things that we spotted was that, of course, our students wrote conversations, but actually we had to turn the script into prompts. So you'll see here, we moved from a script on the left-hand side to a prompt on the right-hand side. And then when we had worked with the computer science students, we realized that we needed more information. So this is the most recent view of how a conversation is stored. We've got the CEFR level, we've got the overarching context and the subcontext, because of course there are going to be many role plays within the context of ordering food and drink. But we now know we have to provide a scenario. So here you arrive at a restaurant, and then who are the two people that you are playing? A is the customer, B is the manager of a restaurant. So we've gone through steps to work out exactly what we now think we must produce for each role play, and has been now produced. So where are we in the design process? And this has been quite a roller coaster. Progress to date. Now, our initial plan was without funding. So we recruited the two students, Orshi and Tamara, in August 2021. And in the first semester that year, they wrote 84 role plays. And then the next step was between January and April 22, all the computer science students, level 5 computer science students taking a particular module, worked on a prototype web browser, and it was their module assessment. So I was involved in briefing the students on what the requirement was, and then if they had questions for me, they'd come back to me at different times, and they were assessed on that piece of work. And then our life suddenly changed because in December 21, we were awarded British Academy funding for the development of the app. It was a new sort of research call, and they were looking for projects which involved IT and languages, not necessarily both together, but we were lucky we fitted the bill. So having been awarded some funding, it meant that we could continue to pay, or we could continue to have our 2 humanities students for the second semester from January through to April 22, but this time we could pay them, and they converted the role plays into prompts, and they also designed information gap exercises. And the other chunk of money, the main chunk of money that we've got, is being used to fund 2 computer science students who are going to convert the web browser into an app. So these are final year students who've done a work placement, who've got really quite developed IT skills, and that's what they're going to be doing. And in addition to that, in March 22, the School of Computer Science won funding for a Student as Co-Creators project, and they have designed the language conversation app user interface. And that work took place between May and July 22. So the final bit that we're doing now is the computer science students are just about to start the work converting the web browser into an app. So it's been an interesting journey for all of us, and the funding from the British Academy has been very well received and has made a huge difference to us. What I'd like to show you now is what the Trello looks like. So this, the next couple of images are taken, are examples of what the computer science students have done as they've created the user interface. Some of you may be very familiar with this type of software. I had never experienced it before, all totally new to me. This is Trello, and I'm going to show you 3 views. I appreciate it's a little bit small, but I think you'll have a sense of what we're trying to do. So this is a view of the initial menu that will be used for the user interface. And you can see that the shape is to fit exactly with a mobile phone. So this is what it's going to look like from the left. There's going to be a welcome, some initial information, a menu, the different types of things you can do, user profile, and there'll be a progress area so you can see which different role plays you've done, and hopefully it will be set up so if you are using this system within a classroom setting, the teacher would be able to see exactly which role plays their students have done, their learners have done, how many times they've done them, how long it's taken, how many hints they've had to click on, that sort of thing. This second view is the next stage in the app design. You can see on the far left, we've got the choice of activities, conversations, or information gap. And these are all to do with the conversations, with the role plays. So to start with, the student will be able to decide what level do I want to work with, which CEFR level. And then within each level, they will be able to select the contexts they can look at, the overarching contexts, before selecting the specific items. And then a student can decide, am I going to be person A or am I going to be person B? And then they click start, and the person who's person A gets one half of the conversation and the other person gets person B. A second, let me just see. And then you start, sorry. And just to show you how the conversation will run, if you imagine this view is of a conversation, and from one person's perspective. The actual prompt that is live is coloured in green, and any vocabulary items for which we've got the target language vocabulary item will be highlighted. So the learner can decide whether or not they need that help, in which case they can click on it, or they might decide, well, I don't need that. I know all that vocabulary, it's not a problem. And as the two learners progress through the conversation, the item, the prompt that they've used is grayed out. So you're constantly working your way through and you're looking at the green part of speech. And right at the end, if you look in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth little window, you'll see at the bottom there's a pink box saying reveal both. So you can then reveal the whole of the conversation and both look at it. And of course, you can redo that role play. You might choose to do it without using the prompts that you may have used, or you might decide you're going to swap roles. So person A will be person B and vice versa. We have also piloted some information gap exercises. I've got to be honest, these are much trickier to plan on a phone-sized device. I'm not even going to share the examples of you because often you've got 3 columns of information, and I think we need to revisit how we do that before we put a lot of effort into it. So our current focus is on conversations. So I've put this picture in here. It was quite a memorable moment for us. We piloted the user interface for the language app on an extremely hot day in July. And here we've got a mixture of, we've got our the authors, the 2 students who wrote the role plays. We've got computer science students, and we've also got language students, all looking at each view of the interface to work out whether or not it makes logical sense or not. And then our fabulous colleagues in the computer science department took notes. You know, we wanted to know, does this work? Does that work? Is it logical? Do you understand where you've got to progress to next? And they took full notes and then amended the interface appropriately. And what have we as linguists learned from this whole process? Well, I mentioned earlier, non-linguists do not automatically understand how a role play or information gap exercise works. It was quite interesting. We actually had to demonstrate how Heiner and I would each have a mobile phone, and we would have a script, and we would then be able to share, use those prompts for a conversation in the target language. So working with the School of Computer Science and Engineering has required us to be very clear in our requirement, and that's very good practice. So as the project has developed, here are some of our ideas. So, you know, how do you give feedback? Because we haven't got necessarily a teacher involved in the process. Could we add sound files of sample conversations at the end? So 2 learners would practice a conversation and then perhaps listen to that target conversation spoken by other people. Could we have a recording situation? So you have 2 students use the prompts and then you record that conversation. We're going to revisit the information gap exercises because the design needs to work on mobile devices. We wonder whether our computer science colleagues could add automated changes to some of the key information. Now, what do I mean by that? If we've got a role play, for example, in a shop, and you want to buy a kilo of grapes and it's going to cost you £2.50, would it be possible for the app to just change the food item and the cost automatically. So instead of needing to buy a kilo of grapes, you're going to buy a kilo of bananas and they're going to cost £1.27. You know, to what extent can we keep the functional language the same, but change key vocabulary within it, and for that to be generated by the computer? This is going to be an open source project app. So will teachers or publishers be interested in adding their content to the app? And if so, what will the process be? Because if we've got the technology, and you think of textbooks where in a chapter you might have the scope to include 1 or 2 role plays. Imagine if those prompts could also be put onto the app and you could link the app through to different textbooks. It would enable you to put much more practice into textbooks. What about language for specific purposes? The context that we've got there at present, things like food and drink and travel and visiting places and meeting people. But it may be that there's a requirement for language for specific purposes. It could be medical language. It could be train driver language. It could be anything. It could be for anybody working in airports, etc. Then the next thing, which really ramps the app up a fair bit, we've done the prompts in English, but the prompts could, of course, be rendered into other languages. And that would enable, hopefully, people to use prompts in, say, French or German to learn Greek or Hindi or any other language. In my mind, the world is your oyster. We're focusing on the 8 languages that we use for Polylang, but there is no reason why we should be limited with those languages and those prompts in English in the future. Then can a bot replace one of the learners? This is set up for 2 people to practice the language. But what if somebody wanted to practice a conversation and didn't have a speaking partner? Would it be possible to have a bot so that you interact with a computer and you listen to prompts and respond to them? That's a long way off, but it must be possible. And finally, could the app find you an online partner to practice with? I think, there's lots of really good language learning apps that you can use, but often they're better for the receptive skills. And it's when you want to actually practice speaking the language that things become trickier. So if this enabled you to also find somebody who was practicing the same language at the same sort of level, and you could find them online, wouldn't that be a great opportunity? So when will the app be available? We are hoping that the first basic level prototype will be ready next spring, and it will be basic level. It won't have these marvelous things that we're imagining with our Blue Skies thinking. It will be a conversation app. It will be prompts in English based on our initial 84 role plays, and we will pilot it on our current language volunteer scheme. We're now in the 3rd year of the scheme. There will be free access for all. And therefore, if you're interested and you would like to be involved in this or hear how the work is developing, please can you email either Heine or me? I've put our email addresses online. And our hope would be to present a fully working app, basic app. I must say that perhaps during the next language show in a year's time. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to stop sharing now. Okay. Any questions? Oh, thank you for some floating claps. It is really bizarre speaking into the ether and without being able to get that little bit of feedback. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. And I probably spoke far too quickly as well because I couldn't see the clock at the same time. So I apologize for that. Heine, any questions?
I think I answered most. Some was about, can we use it on an iPad?
That is a question for the IT guys, isn't it?
It's good to ask. We didn't think about it, Kate, so far. I think we thought because it's a Mac application, it should work probably on an iPad as well. But we have to ask. I think let them know.
I'm just putting r.uk. That's me. And then I'm going to do Westminster. I'm just putting our details in the chat. I know. Whoops. There we go. And the name of the app, well, we refer to it, to be honest, as the language app, don't we, Heine? But it's really a language conversation app. But that's probably not the slickest name we could get for it. So I think that's draft. It's work in progress.
Work in progress, yeah. And one colleague asked if this could be used for English students.
Yes.
Students learning English, I think, yes, would be ideal.
Yeah. That's why the prompts would need to be then translated into another language. And of course, that technology exists. We have it with Google Translate, you know, and I appreciate that may not always be the perfect translation, but for sort of concrete conversations such as this, low-level concrete conversations, I would have thought it should be possible to do a pretty good first cut translation, then for somebody else to then refine that work. Any more for any more?
I think, let's check the questions. Yeah, how does your app evaluate the accuracy of the response?
That's why we thought about perhaps recording it, you know, whether, Dimitri, open source code project, what license is it published under? I don't think we've got to that stage. And I am in awe, Dimitri, that you know that all of this stuff needs to exist. I'm going to write that down. I think that's a techie question. And whilst I think Heine and I have learned a huge amount, I don't know that. I'm just going to write that down. Open.
Yeah, I think it's like at the moment, it's like we're developing it in-house with the students. And then we have the next step would be then when we put it out on a server, then we have to look into these details. That's good if you're interested and you think you can use it or not anybody else, stay in contact or leave your email address, email to us, and then we can contact you if we go further.
Dimitri, I've got that written down, and I shall go and ask our fabulous colleagues.
Yeah.
Aleka. Oh, Luke, who's developing the software? Well, that's being done in-house. We've got 2 students who are working on this, but I'm aware, well, my sense is that they will be able to work on the initial prototype. But if this as a concept makes sense, there will come a time, I would have thought relatively quickly, where we're going to need to do something much more high level to make it work. Contact details again. The contact details are a little bit, does the chat disappear? They're a little bit further up, and we've got them at the end of the of our slides. we've got all our details there.
Also put them in. Yeah, and
Do I need to put them in Q&A? Should I put them in Q&A? Just to see if I can do that. Q&A.
About the accuracy, we developed it. It was like we had some native speakers teaching or working with people who want to learn the language. So the native speaker in this case could give them feedback and check the accuracy. But of course, if you have 2 students who learn the language, it's a different process. And then, yeah, we have to think about what way we could use to give feedback. One way is of recording the answers, for instance, and then you could check against the recording. You managed to put it in?
I tried and then I lost it. Have a second. I'm going to put it down here again at the bottom. We're okay at westminster.ac.uk and then schenk@westminster.ac.uk. Here we go.
Yeah, if not, if you go to the university website, westminster.ac.uk, then you will also find, if you type in our names, you will also find us.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you. I must admit, I don't use Zoom normally. I use Teams. So I'm at the end of my technical tether, as it were.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I really hope that it's a really simple, it's a simple idea. I appreciate that, but I think with the right technical support, it could become really useful. And I think we're clearly going to need more technical support in the future, aren't we, Heine?
Yeah. Marcin asked, are you going to have different answers that are true to the prompt?
Yeah, and do some branching. I gather that's the term, branching. Well, there's no reason why not. I really do think the sky's the limit, but it's unfortunately, I personally don't have the technical skills required for that. So I can sit and imagine all sorts of things and hope that other people can implement them for us. As they are really great technical colleagues. Anything else? Right. I think that's it. So
check the chat or something.
Thank you. Oh,
I think something competitive.
Julia, can you I've just put them in again. I've just, if you scroll up, are they in Q&A? They're in Q&A. And I can't, insight about similar or competitive apps. To be honest, I can't really comment. All I know is that they may be very good at receptive skills and great fun to do a bit of practice. But my personal view is that then trying to get the speaking practice is always challenging. And that's why we've come up with this, trying to give people a framework within which they can practice using the language. Okay. Anything else? Right. Finished early. I think I spoke too quickly. I apologize for that. Nadia, thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. And I guess we then just end it, don't we? I click on the magic button.
Yeah, stay in contact if you're interested.
Yeah, I would love to hear from you.
To hear from you, we update you, and then hopefully at some point you'll be able to use it. And
yeah. Well, we can all then use it. It will be, I think it's something that we want people who are interested to be part of. You know, there's going to be lots of questions and things we need to sort out and opportunities. So all ideas gratefully received.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. Oh, Jola raised a hand. I don't think in this particular conference type Zoom, we can actually talk to you. That's the, I think you'll need to, oh, no worries. Just email us. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, that would be lovely. Look forward to receiving your email. And I think that's it. And have a great Sunday lunch if you haven't had it already, is all I can say. Heine, any final words from you?
No, just thank you for joining. Hope interesting, and stay in contact. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the conference today at the language show, or enjoy the weather.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.